Well, he's a familiar face and voice now to Western Mass News viewers. Our own Dave Madsen has been bringing you one-on-one interviews on news, entertainment, and more on his podcast, Even Better Western Mass. Dave, welcome to the show. And today actually marks 1 year of the podcast, and he's joining now to kind of talk all about what was happening throughout this year, and then what we can look forward to. So, Dave, just first and foremost, glad to have you back. Great to hear you in the opens now here on Western Mass News again. And you got to tell us, most recently, I think I saw Congressman Richard Neal is who you interviewed. I mean, what was this past year like for you?
It's been strange because we got off to a start. I think it was February 17th was the first podcast we did, and that was with our weather team. And they were giving their winter weather advisory, and by then we were about halfway through winter. But the goal was to go on location, and we also began shooting them down at our MGM studios in Springfield. But with COVID, well, that changed all that, and now, as you can see behind me, we do them on Zoom from my basement. So I call it a cheap Wayne's World.
Yeah, I love what you've done with the place right there. We are not
Don't
worthy.
you like that?
We are not worthy, as they say over in
Well, you
Wayne's
should see
World.
all my grandkids' toys are over in the corner over here. So it's...
Yeah, I noticed as well some barriers to keep the Legos off the feet. You know, you don't want to step on those.
I've hit them.
Oh, they hurt. They hurt. My goodness. So that's kind of where you are now. What should folks look forward to in the future with the podcast? Any big guests coming up?
Well, we've got one of the things I've tried to do is when we started out, I was doing some local radio personalities and things like that. Then when COVID hit, we kind of shifted the focus to that. And basically to give some advice to folks, how are you going to deal with this day in and day out? And we still touch on that to some point. But what I like to do is, we've featured some local celebrities, some national celebrities. Gary Puckett from Gary Puckett, the Union Gap was one of the guests. And Keith Lockhart, the conductor of the Boston Pops back in July, because all their season changed too. But, we try to focus on local people who are doing great things and also on local nonprofits too, who may need some help as we try to make our way through this whole thing with COVID-19. Hopefully we're getting there.
Yeah, light at the end of the tunnel, we can only hope for. And I know we've had some guests here on Better Western Mass that have made their way over to you through Be Vital Wellness, for instance, the gals over there and everything they do to help people just feel better about themselves. So how about this? Somebody watching at home right now, let's say they did have a story they were interested in telling or maybe getting in touch with you to get on the podcast. How do they go about that?
Just send me an email, dave.madsen@westernmassnews.com. Still have my email address at the station. It's like you can't, in some ways you just can't get rid of me.
You're like that guy in Office Space where they shoved down to the basement and they're like, oh, he's still here.
I'm in the basement. Yeah, exactly. It actually, it's kind of a hoot because, I'm doing some news for Western Mass News on a few radio stations. And now to do the intros to the newscast, it's kind of what I always wanted to do because I started in radio and I love radio. And at this point in time in my life, I mean, look at this face now. It's time to put it to rest.
Oh, don't beat yourself
but we have to do the podcast on YouTube too. So you do get to see it every now and then. But so it's on YouTube, Google Music, and on iTunes. So it's out there everywhere. My granddaughter said to me, she said, "Pa, who listens to your podcast?" And I said, "Well, I think a few people do." And she says, "Well, does Grandma listen to it?" And I said, "I don't think so." It kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, what is a podcast? You got to first ask.
What is a podcast? Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So YouTube, your iTunes, your Spotify's, all that. You can find Dave Madsen, a legend in this business. And you can also catch him at the start of every newscast here on Western Mass News. Now it's the voice open.
Yeah, who is that voice? I'm sure when that first came on, they said, that sounds familiar, but I'm not sure who that is.
I know my ears perked. Dave, it was great to see you, man.
Taylor, thanks. Good to see you. Get some rest.
Oh, definitely going to try to. And we'll do this again on year number 2. Hopefully before then, though.
All right. Sounds good.
Take care.
Stay well.
Will do.